All right, folks, in this video, we are going to continue to learn how to use the 3D modeling tool. We're going to make this part after we make something else, and then we're going to make this part and then modify it a little bit. So go into Onshape, and here we go. Now, first thing we're going to do, make sure you're in your practice project. Okay, everything we're doing in here is in there so far. You should have a bunch of tabs open. I don't because I haven't done anything in this one yet. And we're going to start a new tab with a new part studio in here. Now, we're going to learn how to use this thing called the revolve tool. So please rename the tab that you're in, and let's call it Coffee Cup, Coffee Cup, because we're going to use this a few times. So go ahead and go in there. We're going to sketch in the front, but this time we're going to use a new tool called Revolve, a different type of extrusion. So we're going to make this cup, which is about 3 and I think it's 3 1/4 in diameter and 3 3/4 tall. So go ahead and sketch on the front. As always, P turns off the planes, N brings your plane perpendicular to your vision, or normal is what we call that. We're going to make a couple rectangles, and we'll call this 0.15 thick. So always start by hooking up to the origin point with one of the corners. Okay? And we're going to go out here and about to 1.5-ish, okay, and click. Zoom in a little so we can see what we're doing. You can go back in dimension later if you want, but we're going to make that. So I'm going to let the computer do it for me, and I'm going to put in that dimension as in parentheses. I'm going to put 3.25 because it was 3 1/4 in diameter. Whoops, I don't know where the 4 came from. Let's try 2. Oh, I made it go away somehow. Whoops, that happens. I'm going to go a different way and just go into dimension. I'll just dimension it this way. So what I was trying to do was in parentheses 3.25. Actually, I don't need parentheses. I'm only doing one operation. 3.25, which was, and divided that by 2 to get me a radius. I want a radius. The other dimension is going to be 0.15. Remember that these dimensions can go anywhere. Don't get confused by them, and don't think about like where they are, because they can be anywhere. It might be in there, it might be out here, it might be wherever. It's just showing you the size of things. Okay, that little F means function, meaning I did some math in there. All right, now that's going to represent half of the bottom of the cup. Now we need to do the top, and we're going to make a rectangle again. Hook it up to this point. Now we're kind of going to work that way. Click. I want it to be 0.15 on the bottom. Once I hit enter, it'll go to the other one. Yours might go the opposite direction. You might have had the height first. And this one is going to be 3.75. Keep touching my screen accidentally. Let's do dimensions. There we go. 3.75 minus that little 0.15 on the bottom that already exists. Okay, cool. So there's our profile of our coffee cup if we cut it through the middle and we're only looking at 1/2 of it. Now we're going to use the revolve tool to make that. Actually, first, we're going to make some curves on this because the bottom is curved a little bit and the top. We're going to do this in a couple of different ways. Okay. One is we're going to fillet the sketch, and the other one is going to fillet the solid. Fillet is rounding over. You can either fill in or you can round over an edge. So let's go ahead and go in here, and we're going to fillet that edge. Ooh, it wants to go the wrong way. Let me see if I can do that again. But this time I'm going to choose the edges. I want that edge and that edge. There we go. And that's rounding that over. Let's make that inside edge 0.2. So we'll double click on that, once you click somewhere, it's going to give you an option. You might have to kind of play around with it a little bit. Ooh, and it moved that in. Okay, things don't look the way I want them to look. We're learning things here. So I often make mistakes in these videos, and I keep them in because it creates issues that you might run into. I'm going to undo that, undo that. We're going to do these edges to the solid. I always prefer to do it to the solid anyway, instead of to the sketch if I'm putting things like fillets and chamfers on. But let's go ahead and do this at the top. So zoom in to the top of this thing, and we're going to do a fillet here on this corner. Notice it's red, meaning, hey, you can't go further than what it is. Let's make that fillet. Click somewhere. I'm going to make it 0.06 on the inside, 0.06 on the inside, and then we'll make the outside a little less. So we're still in the fillet command. We're going to click somewhere. Let's make that one 0.04. So we have the inside is 0.06 and the outside is 0.04. Now, there's another thing that happened is I accidentally made them both the same. Whoops. Let's try and undo that. Undo that. Okay. I don't want them both the same. Maybe I have to hit escape to get out of the command and try that one again. Okay. Click 0.04. There we go. So I must have had to get out of the command or it's going to do the same thing again. All right, cool. So we've got that and we've got our overall shape. I have to get out of this command. I don't want to make a sketch or a fillet. So escape is your friend. We're using the escape tool a lot. Now, instead of doing an extrude here, we're going to do a revolve. And this line right here is going to be our axis that we revolve around. So we're going to hit the, instead of extrude, okay, we're going to finish our sketch, okay? And instead of extrude, we're going to revolve it, this little guy right here, okay? And to revolve, we have to have two things. We have to have a shape and we have to have an axis. So I'm going to choose the shapes I want, that and that. And now it wants me to choose an axis. Pink means, hey, would you please pick something? I'm going to click on that to make it blue, which means I'm doing it. And then I'm going to select that axis. Click, and it revolves that part. So green check mark says, hey, we're looking good. So there's the body of our mug. Now, we're not quite done yet because the inside is filleted and this edge is filleted a little bit. I'm going to do those same two dimensions. This time we're going to do a solid fillet. So click that. We're going to click that little inside edge down here inside. Click. Okay. Now it's automatically choosing a radius of whatever the default is. Yours might be different than that. We're going to make that 0.06 like we did on the top. Enter. Enter again. We'll put it there. Okay, we've rounded it over, and now we're going to round over that outside edge to 0.04. So we're going to fill it. Notice it remembered the last thing I did. The computer thinks that I want to do that same thing again, but no, I'm going to change it. 0.04, enter will give you a preview. Enter again will establish it. All right, cool. So we've made our cup. Go ahead and get it to a point where we can kind of see something like that, where we can see the inside, the outside. Get a screenshot of that. And we're going to use this again later and make the handle, but that'll be a different time. All right, cool. So we made the coffee cup. Go ahead and get that into the document into this spot right here. And now we're going to move on to talk about these guys. So you're going to want to look at this drawing, this multi-view that shows us a front view and a top view. Notice that it says all dimensions are in millimeters. So we're going to have to type in mm because our default is in inches while we're making this. And let's go ahead and get started. So it says that we're to sketch a 20 millimeter by 30 millimeter rectangle. That's because we're going to use the revolve tool to make this. It's probably easier just to draw a circle and extrude it, but we're going to follow the instructions on this just to practice with that revolve tool. All right, so let's go back here. We're going to create a new part studio. Before we even get started, let's rename that as socket. Okay. And this time we're going to work on the front again because we're going to spin around an axis on the front. So we're going to sketch on the front, P, N, plane, get rid of the planes, go normal. And we're going to start by making that rectangle. So click, click, and it's going to bring up that. Now we can type in the base was 20 mm. You have to put in millimeters. Enter gets you to the other one, and it's going to convert it to inches in what you see. And the height was 30 mm. Enter. Now notice it's going to show these values in inches. Okay, we could change our defaults, but and to show us what those are in millimeters, but we can trust that for now. All right. Let's go ahead and do what the next thing is. It says finish the sketch and then revolve around the 30 millimeter side. Let's do that. Finish the sketch, revolve this surface around, click on that to make it blue, around the 30 millimeter edge. Cool. Now we've got our basic cylinder. Next is we're going to make this little rectangular or square protrusion that's 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters. Okay, at the top, we're going to use the center point square for this. So we're going to sketch on the top surface. N will bring us normal to that, or we can click on the view cube. Now, drop down menu here says, oh, we've got corner rectangle as the default. We also have the center point rectangle. Let's use that one to hook right up to the middle there. Pull that out, click, and we're going to, again, 10 mm. We're going to type in millimeters, enter, and 10 mm. If you missed it or touch your screen like I do all the time, remember you can always go back and use the dimension tool. Cool. So we've got that. We're going to finish the sketch. Let's see what we have to do. We have to finish the sketch and extrude it to 15 millimeters. So finish the sketch. Let's turn a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. And we're going to go to 15 millimeters. Okay, looking good. All right, next it says extrude the square 15 millimeters. Whoops, I just did that. Nope, let's add a 5 millimeter fillet to the edges between the rectangular prism and the cylinder. So this says R5 right there, so we need to do that. So we're going to put in a fillet. We're going to choose all 4 of those edges. Use your left mouse button to select those, and we're going to change that radius. Remember the last thing, to 5 millimeters. Enter gives you a preview. Enter again to establish it. Cool. Looking good so far. Last thing is we need to put that chamfer on here. So it says to make a 5 by 30 degree chamfer at the bottom of the cylinder to make sure it's correct. Chamfers are a little tricky, so we're going to put a chamfer on here. What do we want to chamfer? We want to chamfer that edge right there. Now, it gives us a bunch of options. Right now, the measurement is offset. Okay. Sorry. I'm going to go chamfer type. Right now, it's equal distance on both sides, but I can also do a distance and an angle. Okay. Now, this is a little tricky, and I don't remember how it works, so I may have to make a correction. So my distance was going to be, I believe, 5 millimeters. Yes. And 30 degrees. So it's 5 millimeters. I'm going to enter that to get my thing, and it's going to be 30 degrees. And we hit enter. Now, it just so happens that it's going the right way. If you look at this, see how it's going farther in than it is up. So if yours isn't like that, hit that flip. It should look like that and not like that. Okay. Cool. If we're good, we're going to pick that, and we have that socket done. Let's put this in an isometric by clicking on one of these corners of the view cube, which will bring that into an isometric view for us, and take a screenshot of that. And go ahead and put that image into right here, please. All right, now we're going to do this thing called the spool with holes. Now, I'm not going to go over everything with you. You're going to do this using the skills that we just did. Now, notice this is in inches, so we're no longer going to type in right? So let's look at this drawing a little bit. This time, instead of doing a revolve, I would just draw that bottom circle that we can see is a diameter of 0.125. If we're looking at the top view, they must both be the same because there's no weird hidden lines in there. Um, and then we're going to extrude it up. Then we're going to do that center point rectangle. You can figure out what the square size is. I promise you all the information is there. We're going to extrude it upward. And again, a lot of students will ask me, well, how high is this? Okay, I promise you all of the information is there to figure that out. You might have to subtract something from something else, but you can figure out what the length is from here to here. Okay, you can also figure out how far it is from here to here. I promise all that information is on the drawing. So you're going to do a circle, extrude, square on top of that center point square, extrude, another circle hooked up to the midpoint of that, extrude, okay, and get to the point where you've got just this basic shape without the holes in it. Start off by sketching on the top. Again, you should start a new part studio. You should name it. Let's call it Spools with Holes. And we're going to kind of build from the top plane up. So get to the point where you have this, and then we'll talk about putting in the holes. All right, you should have this. Hopefully you have a front view if you look at the view cube facing kind of one of these edges. If you don't, it's not a big deal, but we do want to try to draw on this front part of this. So in other words, we don't want to go over here. That's the right side if we look at the view cube. We want to move it around to the front. So we're going to sketch on here. Okay. Again, N normal brings us here. And we're going to place 3 points that represent where the holes are going to be. It's 0.5, 0.5, and 0.5 up. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to place a point here. Now, you'll notice that it hooks up either with the origin point here or the top point here. We want to make sure, see that yellow line? We want that yellow line because see, it's making it lined up horizontally, and we want that. So we're going to click. We're going to keep following that, keep making sure you see that little yellow dashed line like that. And we're going to place those points. Now they're blue because they can move up and down, but they are locked left to right. So we're going to use the dimension tool now, and we're going to put in those 3 dimensions. From here to this edge is 0.5. Same thing from here to here is 0.5. Okay, if you need to move these things, you can always scoot them before you do that. And we're going to dimension from there, 0.5. This is called chain dimensioning, which actually is kind of a no-no in a drawing, but we're fine with where that is. Whoops. Now let's take a look at that. What did I do wrong? Obviously, that one's not in the right spot. Something must have gone wrong. So I must have needed to extrude this. I made it 1.75, but maybe I was wrong about how far I was supposed to extrude it. 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, that's 1.5. So 2.5 minus this 2 minus the 0.25 leaves 0.25. Let me see what's going on here. Maybe I did not extrude that. So I can go back and look at it. I'm going to finish my sketch. I can come back into it. I'm going to look at that extrude that I did. 1.57. Whoops. 1.75 is what it should have been. Okay, now we're looking right. Let's go back into that sketch, make sure I'm good, and I can finish the sketch. Now we're going to put in holes. So I'm going to put in a hole, okay? And I want that hole to be what we call a simple hole. So it should say simple here, okay? I'm going to make it a 0.25 diameter. Enter gives you a preview. Not done yet. Haven't selected any points yet. We're going to select all 3 of those points. Cool. And good. All right. Orient that in a way that you can see everything, including the holes going through there. And that is going to go into the spool with holes. All right. Now, if you are behind, you have already earned 95% on this assignment. Okay. If you want to earn 100%, you have to do the next thing too, which is that you're going to, instead of having holes go all the way through, we're going to do this half spherical kind of scoop that's in there. So you'll notice that instead of holes, everything else stays the same, including the diameter of these. But this little guy tells you that it's kind of scooped out. So remember revolve? What I would do is I would go back and first of all, let's duplicate this so that we have both of them. Okay. Notice it says spool with holes. Copy now one that we're down here. Let's go ahead and rename that as spool with scoops. Okay. And what's going to happen is you're going to have to delete some things over here that you did. I would not delete that sketch. Okay. I would just delete the holes, go back into this sketch, draw some circles on that point. You're going to need a line through the middle of it that you can use as your revolve tool. And you're going to revolve, but instead of creating, you're going to remove. Just like an extrude, when you do a revolve, you can remove and create those scoops. If you choose to do this and you do it, make sure you orient it in a way where it makes it that I can see those little scoop outs, and you're going to put that in to this spot. Again, this is a varsity level assignment to get you from 95 to 100% if you are not behind. If you are behind, you probably ought to bail on it and just go to the next assignment. All right, folks, hope that worked out for you. We'll see you for the next one.